Hello, boys and ghouls. I've Blackstone here with another episode of Behind the Keyboard. Today, my guest is Alister Hodge, author of the Plague War series, The Cavern, Escape from Viper Rob Island, and Empire of Blood and Sand. Enjoy. So, Al, thank you for coming on. It's a pleasure to meet you. How's everything going?
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. And since I've actually read a couple of your Plague War books from Severed Press, and I like it. It's a different look at zombies.
Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, I loved writing those books. That's the first series that I wrote. So which ended up getting taken on by Severed Press a couple of years ago. So there was so much out there that, as you know, most of the zombie stuff's set in America. So I wanted to see how a bit of a rise in, should I say, fall and rise of society would happen in our setting where, it's a bit different. You haven't got set fortresses, castles, stuff like that, and with the same degree of access to firearms and whatnot. So it'd be interesting to see how we'd approach it as opposed to elsewhere.
Oh yeah, it's really good. After reading the first one, Plague War, I just kind of went, okay, I want to, because I came into it after you had finished writing the three, so I was like, great, got all of them and read them and really enjoyed it. Apart from wanting to write a zombie story set in Australia, where else did the main because the main character, being a practicing doctor and all that adds a different layer to what you usually find.
Sorry, mate, it was cutting in and out there. Can you repeat that question?
Yeah, sure. I was just asking that apart from wanting to write the zombie story set in a different different location, the main character, you don't really see a lot of zombie books where the main character has already a basis of knowledge in medicine and how the human body works. So what made you want to do that as your main character?
I guess I wanted to see different bits of society as well. So in terms of when I took on, I wanted to see how health would survive and the impacts on the health system. Obviously, I've got a health background. I work as a nurse practitioner in emergency, and how the police would be affected, and civilians, and also the military forces. So I suppose that's why you ended up with different characters coming from different parts of society. So you had a backpacker, a police officer, and the doctor as such, and also just trying to make something a little bit working through my head. How would that zombies kind of present, and trying to come up with some sort of biological rationale for it, which would at a fleeting glance you'd go, oh yeah, it kind of sounds like it'll work, sort of thing. So I was personal interest, but also just to get a bit of more understanding from people on the ground and how they might move through it.
Yep. Okay. And it makes perfect sense, and it works. It works because, as I said, I've read all three books and it really enjoyed it. And the thing I liked the most was the fact that all the main characters all had completely different personalities, because sometimes when you read those sort of books, everyone sounds the same.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, and I think that's critical to any story to get people involved, and then you've got to have characters that you care about, and it's amazing how much that they change the story to as you go along. As a writer yourself, in terms of sometimes you have in your head where you think the story is going to go, and as you're writing, the character just throws you a curveball, and they wouldn't react that way, or they take it down a completely different path, and you're suddenly stuck going, oh shit, what are we going to do now? But looks like this is where we are.
Oh yeah, I've had that myself with my own writing, but it's all part of the fun, isn't it? I outline, do a very rough outline. I don't know about yourself, and then it still has that. I love that discovery phase of even though I know what's got to happen in each chapter, the characters still have that ability if they want to screw me over.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I work in a kind of similar way. Just I think to free up my mind, I end up I'll kind of outline a couple of chapters in advance, so I kind of know where I'm going, and I think that's just to let me relax enough just to get on with it. And then sometimes I go through that and it works, or sometimes I'm always open to change. If a better idea comes up, you got to go with it if it's going to make it more fun to read.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Because I mean, it doesn't matter what we want to do. If something comes up that's going to be, as you said, more fun and more entertaining for the reader, you've got to go with it. You can't force it to be how you want it to be.
No, it'll end up being too wooden. And sometimes, and I think that's when you get complaints about plot-driven stories, is that you needed this to happen, and you've kind of forced the story to go there, or forced the characters to react in a way which doesn't really click with them. And I think that shows up quite quickly in writing, in terms of when it just doesn't quite work. And you see that with some movies and whatnot, and it's like just doesn't make sense how they've got there or why they've done that. And I think you can go somewhere, like you've got to get to a certain finish or a certain thing, but you're going to have to find a different way which would actually fit your characters.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, for me, I need to have fun writing. If I'm not having fun, then I know the story, whoever reads it, they're not going to have fun either. Is it something similar for you? Because I get that feeling that if you're not, I get the same sort of feeling from you.
Oh yeah, when I know where I'm writing a scene and I get involved, or I'm reading through it, and you get that little bit of excitement or tingles up the back of your neck, or you get a little bit emotive with yourself, what's happened with the character, then if it's affecting me this way, then hopefully it's possibly going to affect the reader that way.
Oh yeah.
I mean, obviously, I don't know. We get involved with our characters, and you get stuck in their head, so you get a bit attached to them sometimes. But it is what it is.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I mean, if you, I found that if I get attached to a character who I absolutely despise because he's an asshole, when I get to write his death, it's big grin and just giggling maniacally as I have him get torn to shreds by some hideous monster.
Yeah, for sure. Love that.
And
yeah, I had a big there's two in my books, I guess, in that Plague War series, two in the second and the third one, you've got the character which is there to be despised. So it's good giving them their comeuppance in the end.
Oh yeah, it's almost as fun as writing. The hero gets to save the day at the very end, and that's fun to write. But I think getting rid of the despicable characters is a million times more fun because it's cathartic.
Yeah, I agree.
So something I noticed, usually, and I'm the same. My first book, put out by Severed, zombie story. It seems like a lot of authors, they write a zombie story as their first go. Why do you think that happens?
I don't know. I guess in some ways it's such an accessible construct to an extent, I guess, and it's got a lot of elements which are fun and straightforward. And I guess it'd be to an extent where you've got a storyline or structure which and definitive kind of rules to it, which are understood, probably make it a little bit easier to fall into that world or bring your readers along with you, I guess. And I think it's also a field where there's a bit of varying degree of quality of writing out there. So sometimes you read a couple of books, like I read World War Z and loved it, and just wanted to see that in like a proper set of characters go through that whole destruction of society and come back. And that was one of my main inspirations. And I was reading another book which was, not so good. And I was like, man, I want to see something done better than this. Come on, let's go. Maybe I can give it a crack.
Okay.
And then went from there.
Right. That makes perfect sense. I mean, I wrote, one of the books I put out, it's a kaiju story, and I just basically said, I want to write a kaiju book. I think I do better than Godzilla or whatever at the time.
You got to back yourself occasionally and just have some fun. But then when you sit down and do it yourself, you go, oh, this isn't so easy.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, that was the thing, with giant monster stories. It's, I focused too much on the monsters and not enough on the characters, and I came up with a very short book. That was a problem.
Yeah.
So with your, you said that you're a, you're a I don't want to say
nurse
nurse.
practitioner.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm not used to saying that out loud. How much of your your knowledge with how like I'm pretty sure you've seen some really gruesome stuff on the job. How
Yeah.
much of that has gone into any of your books as far as wounds or just things like that?
I think a lot of it. I've worked in emergency now for 20 plus years, and so I'm a registered nurse. It's my background, and then I've done further postgrad degrees and retrained to become a nurse practitioner. So primarily, what you get from me is what you get from a doctor. The scope of practice of what I see. So I see, treat, diagnose, manage, refer, prescribe, the rest of that. But in emergency, you see people in all states. Nobody gets up out of bed planning that they want to go to emergency department that day. So it's getting to see people in what is often a pretty stressful part of their life. And yeah, I've worked in major trauma centres, so you'd see patients coming in either in various states, from medical illness through to traumatic injury from car crashes and falls and suicide attempts and whatnot. So yeah, it can be bloody sometimes, whether it's traumatic amputations or deep lacerations and death scenarios. So what you see on TV is often not a true representative, or they flash away at the crucial moment.
Wait, are you saying TV lies?
Sorry, and
No.
I guess when you see it, never. They make it in a palatable way. And I guess I've had a few reader comments back from some of my books going, "Oh, it's too gory, it focuses on the details." And I'm not overplaying it. This is just what it looks like. So in terms of, you think with a bit of realism, if a nice knife's gone through a deep artery, it's just not a nice pool of blood that spreads out around it. It spurts. And you bust an arm and it's a bad break. It crunches underhand and things like that. So I think a lot of my description is definitely it's biologically correct in terms of what happens and what the ramifications are going to be. And I think that brings a bit of grittiness to it and realism to those, especially with fight and battle scenes and stuff like that. Like, I love action, but also I think in terms of, if you're going there for that, you also got to realize that there's another side to this in terms of what the ramifications are going to be of that. And I think that also makes it interesting for the character if they're having to deal with and they can't, it's not a superhero jumping off the building and landing on it and one knee and getting up and running on. If we're talking about humans, that their body can only sustain so much trauma as such. And again, that's fun. That stuff's fun to watch and read and write about as well. But most of the time my characters are human in more ways than one.
Oh yeah. That's a good answer. that actually really makes a lot of sense. Those comments you said that you had got about people saying, "Oh, your books are too gory," when it comes to what actually would happen in that situation. It's probably because of what you said. They're used to the tamed version in movies and TV shows, and being confronted with something that seems a little too, seems real. Yeah, that's gonna make them.
Yeah, somebody gets stabbed once in their abdomen and fall down dead without moving. That just doesn't happen. Yeah, they're going to squirm around for a while, or they're going to kick their life out. Stuff like that. I think, which some ways it has to be. I think for the reading audience, sometimes you just don't need to go there, but sometimes, it also makes it exciting in some other ways, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely, and memorable as well.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, every author wants somebody to talk about their books and pass on, and hopefully get them shared. You just want your stuff read. Hey?
Oh yeah, definitely, and I think that's one of the hardest things at the moment with indie publishing. It is getting eyes on the books. You froze.
Sorry, I just went to cut out the audio for a second. I just froze. Yeah, it is, and it's working out that marketing to get your stuff with all the other millions of publications on Amazon and around at the moment. Just getting your book up on the screen to it given a go, I think is one of the biggest challenges.
Oh, definitely. Luckily we've like Severed, because you've got you've got the Plague War books, then you've got the Cavern, and then
Escape from Viper Island is a different one which they've taken up.
I wasn't sure how to pronounce how it was pronounced, the name of the corporation. Viper is Viper Rob.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. All right. You've got those books out with them. What, apart from and covers are great, and they've got that built-in fan base. What was the reason that you kind of went, "Yep, I'm going to keep going with them"?
Look, I think with Severed, they've got as you said, they've got a built-in fan base. So in terms of a good following of readers, and I think what Severed's doing really well at the moment with following is the creature feature stuff seems to be what sells best for them. So for future publications with them, like I've got one which is signed to them called Cryptid Killers, which has just been, the manuscript was handed in a couple of weeks ago. So that's a similar kind of creature feature set in the Victorian Alps. But I think that's what they do best at present. So they quick reads, not excessively long novels, but heavy on action, and they seem to do quite well.
Okay, and
my next book coming out is a fantasy book, so I just again, that's outside Severed's remit.
Yeah.
So I look for a different publisher for that one.
Yeah, I wanted to get to talk about Empire of Blood and Sand, because that's actually one I'm really excited for. The moment I saw the cover and everything and read the description, I was like, oh yeah. But just before we get to that, do you enjoy writing creature feature stories? Because you've got your two, you got Cavern, Escape from Viper, and then the new one.
Look, I think they're good fun in terms of it's a lot of the reads which I enjoy reading and movies I enjoy watching. Sometimes it's just a pure escape, and I think creature features are great for that. In terms of it's not too much in depth analysis and thinking with it to an extent. You can explore other issues I exist, but they're all definitely peripheral to the main part of the fun, which is getting that beast in front of you and how your characters react to that and getting the fight going. So this one, most of them it's heavy on action and getting your characters up there and in a bad spot and seeing how they get out of it.
Yeah, same, because I'm working on a creature feature for them at the moment as well, which is set in Australia as well. I noticed that you've got Plague War set in Australia, the Cavern, which is set in Australia as well.
Yeah.
Is that all on purpose, or is it more just Australia, so you might as well set everything here to make it easier on yourself?
Look, it's probably a little bit of both. In terms of it, it makes it easier to write about a setting which well to an extent to describe, and probably takes a little less and makes it a less chance that you're going to stuff it up to an extent, because I think it's if you're setting in another country, you need to know the culture well. You need to know the local customs, the way they talk, phrase things, because for somebody from that area which picks up your book and reads it, then it's going to stand out like a sore thumb if you do it, and if you introduce stereotypes which may be picked up from TV or elsewhere, which isn't really fair on that local population. So I think that's probably part of it, is just an easy way to escape falling into those traps. But there's other parts of the world which I've done a lot of. I was lucky enough to do a lot of traveling when I was a bit younger, in my early 20s. So I lived for a couple of years in the UK, traveled a lot through Africa and Middle East and Europe. But I have America's one part which I haven't had much luck in, just doing a lot of exploring in. I've been there a couple of times, but not enough to set a novel in, I don't think, as such.
Yeah, but that makes sense. I mean, the first book I did was set in Cuba, and I was living in Mexico at the time. So there's a little bit of a crossover, but not too much. So, Google really helps.
Yes, it's the writer's friend, isn't it? The amount of times I open it up just to double check things or research into stuff because you want to get it right.
Oh yeah, and I was talking with William Meikle, and we got into the thing. We got into the thing of one of the best things about having Google is looking up weapons and getting the correct name for a weapon, seeing the description, and then YouTube with how they hold the gun, how they fire the gun, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. How it sounds, all the rest of it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, which fantastic resource, all that sort of stuff. And I mean, I don't know, is there anything like that in regards, I'm pretty sure with your 20 years plus experience, you could probably do something like that for authors when it comes to, this is what really happens when someone gets decapitated.
Luckily enough, I haven't seen that one in real life. Yeah. It's you can find stuff, and I'm sure we'll end up on a watch list somewhere with the sort of things that we type in searching sometimes, because everybody's got a little bit of experience in different areas, but when you're trying to find an answer, and the stuff which is on the internet, can lead you down some rabbit holes. But when I started off, when I was still in uni, I did a bit of Army Reserve as well. So with small arms and whatnot, I was with the artillery down in Victoria, but only did that for a couple of years. My knowledge around those areas is lacking to an extent, but yeah, you've got to use those resources to try and make sure you get it right, because there's a hell of a lot of people with a lot of weapons experience out there, and I think that's an area which really annoys people if you get it wrong.
Oh yes. I've heard of authors getting dragged through the coals over the fact that this particular weapon, it wouldn't fire that way, or it wouldn't hold that amount of bullets or something like that. And for me, part of me goes, I'm glad that's never happened to me, but I'm expecting it at some point.
Yeah, I was going to say yet, because I'm waiting. Yeah. I think it's just because I haven't got enough people reading my stuff yet that they, once you're always going to get, if you get a good fan base, maybe you're going to also get the detractors. True.
Yeah. So basically, part of me hopes I don't get the fan base, so that never happens. But part of me wants the fan base. That's
yes. First world problems.
First world author problems. That's So when you have those sort of problems, happy problems there where you need certain information. Do you have like a set group of people that you go to and ask, or is it just the random Google?
Some things I've searched out. I haven't got a set one. Like I know some other writers have their contact in the army to read through all their stuff. I've got a couple of I've got a few mates which are or did spend quite a bit of time in the army, so I've run certain things past them. Say like one of them was working with the SAS and used to be a chopper pilot. So there was stuff cool. in the third Plague War book which was I was asking what I actually took one of his training stories where with his permission when he was learning to pilot a helicopter, and it was a test that he had to go through to keep it stationary in the air. So it had to not be able to hover still and not move forward, not move to the side. And it ended up that he was drifting off. So the instructors took the helicopter down and parked it, hopped it right next to a tree on his right. So he couldn't move that way. So he goes, so I couldn't do that. Otherwise we were going to run into the tree. And then, but I started drifting to the front. So the instructor put him in front, so there's a tree to the front and to the side, and so just doing this, and I ended up doing that with the training thing with into a different circumstance where the kid was going through a training and was put next to in between three buildings with zombies coming out of the sides. But so I run stuff past him. Other things, I guess, like with the Cavern, I've only ever done like a small resort dive for a couple of minutes under the water. So I haven't got any diving experience, and I sure as hell haven't got any caving experience, because that stuff just scares the crap out of me. Super claustrophobic. So I went looking, touched out with the New South Wales Caving Association. So I managed to find a couple of people willing to, that I could ask some key questions of, and to read through some of the starters, which to find out from my reading, this is what I think it's like there. Is this right or is it wrong? And they picked up a couple of key things where they just said, yeah, that's pretty cool, but there's no way we would do that. You know, when I leave a line behind us in an unplanned cave, you just build a couple of little cans of stones at most, and you're just trying to remember, and you just look at visual cues on the walls around you and go in, and it's like, really, that's all you do? Seriously? Okay, all right. Scrub out that from the story, put this in instead.
But the line is so iconic.
Exactly. Or it brings to mind, you're thinking of, like, you know, finding your way out of the maze, like even like the use in the Minotaur and stuff. Those sort of things which come to mind. Yeah. All the stories we grew up with, myths and legends.
Oh yeah. I'm a little disappointed that they don't use that now. You just killed a part of that for me now.
Yeah, only when they're underwater, they'll let that line when they're doing the cave diving. So it's something which they can pull back sometimes. And they go, even then, that's pretty rare. Most of them have a hammered in line along the side of the wall. But again, that's a pre-explored water course, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. Well, I like the using the zombie buildings to keep the helicopter steady story. That's a good one. So
yeah, that was a bit of fun.
Yeah, and that sort of thing's always fun to write, especially if you can, you get told a really good, the real version is equally funny, but adding that zombies just takes it to the next level.
Yeah, so, it takes it up a notch.
Yeah, but you add zombies to anything, and it just seems to ratchet it up.
Yeah.
So something. Okay, so Empire of Blood and Sand. It's from the description, from the cover, it's 100% a grim, dark story. What, where'd it come from? Because you've done zombies, you've done creature feature, and then all of a sudden you come out with this.
I love fantasy, and I was wanting to branch in, and I love the grim, dark take on it. And then the stories which I had written to date was heavy on action. I love a few beasts and creature features. So this was a bit of a way to mix it all together, and to get something which was, from its core, I wanted to write something which was, action, beasts, military horror, battle and betrayal, pretty much, with human characters where really there's no complete good, no black and white, no good and evil. Is just millions of tones of grey. And in terms of and as in real life, I guess, although you've got creatures and beasts to fight, it's probably the most heinous things and the most evil stuff is what the humans are willing to do to each other.
It's always the case.
So that's that was the starting point.
Okay. And did it take a long time to write, or was it relatively fast to get it out?
No, it took longer than the other horror that I'd written, and I think that's probably because the rules aren't quite as hard and fast in fantasy, maybe. And it was also coming up. This is one where I didn't really have a complete arc of the story sorted in my head when it started. I had an idea about this beast hunter which I wanted to follow. And it was really creating the world they inhabited and went along. So it ended up, I suppose it wrote fairly quickly. Like, it usually takes me about 6 or 7 months to write a first draft in between work. And then with this one, I went through a second phase where I rewrote the world that it inhabited to make it into a desert-based continent, really, and how that ended up there. So it probably took a little bit, it took longer than the other books I've written so far.
Okay, and I was going to ask about because something with any fantasy, whether it's, dark fantasy or regular fantasy, how much time went into just world building? Because, you've got to get all that across as well.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit, and the difference is between that and straightforward, like writing within our world, is you don't have to describe as much because we know the world that we inhabit and live. So there's expectations, and it's easier to form a picture there. Whereas I think when you're creating a new one, you have to find ways to insert it into the story without it becoming, a wad of information which is thrown at you, which then gets in the way of the story. But at the same time, you need to get that information across to make it a real place that, because people read, I don't know, one of the good things about reading fantasy is it's something so different to what is around us. So you need to find, to be able to fall into it and learn to love it, or imagine it and walk in the steps of your character, you have to be able to visualize what's around you. So finding different ways to build that world and get it across.
Yep. No, that makes sense, because I've I don't mind reading fantasy. One of my favorite fantasy characters has always been Conan the Barbarian, and the world building in that is amazing.
Yeah.
I've never really I would like to write something in that, but for me, the world building itself, that's the part that makes me kind of go, yeah.
Yeah, and this one I had to kind of make it, and I had to find a way that it happened, that it made sense to me, that I could set it up. So this one, it's mainly largely a desert continent, and that was developed by kind of two warring between two gods. So the whole land used to be green, and ended up one elder god from the sea wanted a relationship with the other one as such, and when he was rejected, destroyed the land over the top.
Ooh.
So there's parts which have escaped, where she's hidden it into the god Cal has created caverns, or should I say chasms, deep gorges into the land which go down to the water table and through. So you've got lush jungle type areas where the original large beasts of the continent from millennia past have survived, and then other provinces where it's lower down, and that's where the farming areas are. But interspersed through all that is the vast majority is desert, which is higher up. So it's and then the beast aspect of it, I suppose, being with those different chasmed areas, which as sometimes they escape or go into prey in some of the settled areas, and hence the beast hunters being required.
Okay, and the civilizations, or now I haven't read it yet because I want to get the paperback when it comes out. That's so. Okay. With the like reading, like from the cover that Matt James did, it looks very much like an Eastern kind of civilization, that sort of influence.
Yeah, it's bang on. So to me, what I had in my head is like Nabatean culture, which was based in Jordan back in the Roman times. So they constructed the city of Petra. So I was lucky enough to back through there, back in 2002 through Syria, before it was descending into conflict and whatnot. So in my head, it was that type of culture based in the desert, and also mixed with Cappadocia in Turkey, where you've got these it's like soft sandstone, and the hollow buildings out of the stone, and that's still prevalent through that area, some of the old cities. So that's a setting which I had in my head. So where you've got different provinces, you've got desert in between, and the empire's been constructed by the people which control the desert regions, because they've created the trade routes, or like systems of water in the desert, and been better able to, because they can navigate the desert areas, can then attack the other provinces, bringing them under control. So we're hitting this continent really at the end of 30, 40 years of war, of conquest, where the different provinces have been brought under control of the one king.
Okay, wow. Yeah, you just really reaffirmed that. Yeah, I want to read this book now. And it sounds good. Like, it sounds like you really put in all the work to get the world and everything seem realistic, which is a funny thing to say when it comes to fantasy.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I suppose with anything, you just want to be, you want to stay within that, what do they call it? suspension of disbelief.
Yep.
And when you get pulled out of it, then it pulls you out of the story. Hey.
Oh yeah, and with something like fantasy or even like science fiction, that's really hard to keep because you are dealing with things never before seen.
Yeah, which should be like, this is ridiculous, but
oh yeah, definitely.
what's happening.
Oh yeah, and it's always funny when it, like when something breaks. Usually, like with suspension of disbelief, when something breaks it's usually something very small and unimportant. But there's that part of your brain that says that's wrong, 100% wrong. Everything else sucks now.
Yeah, it's funny those little things with like I had editor Chris McAnally for this. It was just a turn of phrase, where the character said, "Well, now his shot at flying under the radar was ruined." He's gone, "Well, but this is pre-electronics. There is no radar. We can't use this phrase here." It's like, yes, good point. Okay.
Yeah, that would definitely be the killer there. Although you could probably come up with, some reason they have radar, it could be magic or something like that.
Yep.
Or sonar.
with their magic systems.
Yeah, there you go. And so, you wrote Empire of Blood and Sand, and you realized that no way would Severed put it out because it's not their wheelhouse. So what led you to go with Screaming Banshee?
I've done a couple of short stories for their anthologies, of which they started off with, and I wanted to work with a pretty good or easily communicated with editor and business, and Chris seemed has been good with getting the other stories for the anthology off track, and so I thought we'll give it a crack, and had a good chat with him, and he was interested, wanted to check it out, and that's how it kind of came together, I guess. So he was interested, and we'll see how it goes as a starting base.
Okay, and is there plans to continue the story, like because usually these sort of fantasy things go forever?
Yeah, look, I'd love to. I've got probably about 12 chapters into a sequel. With any of these things, I think the unfortunate reality is we'll have to see how it sells. I mean, if it takes off, I think there will definitely be a sequel to it. But it depends. It depends if it gets a life and a following. If it's selling well, then great. I'll be happy to write some more. I think there's definitely 2 or 3 more books into it at least.
Okay, and well, I mean,
or if not that.
So sorry, the dogs.
I suppose it'd be also like, all good. Mine's locked out the side at the moment.
Okay.
When she kicks off barking, I apologise in future. But yeah, even if not, I think the world's there now, so it'd be good fun to write some spin-off stuff, just focusing back on the beast hunter aspect of it as well. Yeah. Whereas at present, it's ended up going down a slightly different path.
Okay, and one of those things where it's the characters took you down that different path, or
well, yeah, it's locked into a kind of the empire being completed to an extent. So one of the other main characters is the daughter of the king. Mm-hmm. So she's a kind of a warrior princess and a general in her own right. So it's following her story as well as the main character, Jael Crowfeeder, which is the beast hunter soldier.
Okay, cool. And I mean, was it hard to get into the mindset of writing, a fantasy story? Because you're not, no technology, no modern weapons, was that hard to go from, all right, I'm used to writing all this, now I got to write this?
To an extent, I guess it's researching different methods of warfare. Like I grew up really enjoying myths and legends and stories from Italy and ancient Greece, and read a lot of historical fiction based around Roman Empire, and then also medieval England and UK and Scandinavia. So there was, I suppose, that aspect of bringing to bear some of those things which I've learned through other stories reading, and I think the human element of it never changes as well. It's just the setting. So your characters are still going through the same issues, but within a different world, I guess. So I guess if they're the commonality, which makes it easier to broach, I think.
That makes perfect sense, actually.
If that makes any sense.
No, actually, it makes a lot of sense. I think other authors who watch this, they're going to go, "Yep, that makes sense." And for any normal person, they'll be there going, "What the hell?"
Jumped around a few topics. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Because I mean, I've got my own idea for like doing a grimdark kind of thing, but the I'm so used to writing. Everything happens now. It's very easy to write in a modern setting. So the whole writing in the just a fantasy world, or even just in the like Conan Hyborian age kind of era, it's like that's scary as all hell. But everything you just said, humans are humans. It's just the setting that's changed. It actually makes a lot of sense and makes me feel less.
And I think it's getting a few of the small details right, because you're never going to be an expert in everything. It's I was listening to a podcast by some other science fiction and fantasy writers, and they've gone, well, one big error that people make all the time is treating their horses like a car, where they just park it up and leave it there, whereas in reality it needs to be watered, put in stable, treated in so many ways. And he goes, that's a more easy thing to get right, and then they'll focus less on these other parts of the society which you may not have got completely right. So there's selling it enough, work out a few things which you need to get right, and you'll be forgiven for more of the details which are probably skated over without as much. So kind of identifying a few things which get correct, and give you a little bit of I don't know, kudos that they've done some work here. Most of it's right. I'll give them a pass on that other bit, which is a little bit ridiculous.
Well,
that's what I'm hoping anyway.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I heard I can't remember who it was, but he said basically another guy, he writes like coming of age stories, all that sort of stuff. And he said that for him, he doesn't aim for 100% perfect, 80%. So if 80% of the story makes sense, works, and those details are all there, the other 20% doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're never going to get it perfect. You're always going to find a situation. It's always got to come a point where you just go, it's going to have to do. Yeah.
Yep.
Otherwise, they'll never make it to the publisher, or never get out there.
Definitely. And that was, like speaking with every other author I've talked to, some of them, like you, everything's done through a publisher. Others are, completely self-published. I'm a hybrid. What stopped you from just going, right, screw this, I'm going to put this out for myself? I'm going to do everything myself, and if it succeeds, I'll make all the money, and if it fails, lesson learned.
I think it's about look, there's incredible quality self-published fiction out there, and it's going through those steps to with editors and whatnot, to ensure that there's some other eyes over your work to an extent. And maybe there's a bit of anxiety on my own part, that I want to know that what I'm doing is good enough to get out there. And so I suppose there's a little bit of, if it's got over the hurdle to be picked up by this publisher, then I know it's not the worst thing out there. So there's probably a bit of that, and that was probably definitely with the first books. I would definitely consider self-publishing in the future. Part of the other work is part of the other major side of it is just haven't got the time or desire to do probably the degree of marketing and backup which would need to be done if I was doing it completely by myself. So by going with a publisher, you access their already pre-made fan base to an extent, or readers, and that's especially with Severed, I think is the main thing that they get for you with especially with their creature feature stuff, because they can be a bit light on the marketing side. But yeah, that's, and also being able to ensure that I've got some other eyes going over it, that it's being edited appropriately, that you're getting the covers, like a good quality cover with feedback about what's working. So you're getting the benefit of other industry professionals, which are going to help get that book in front of as many people as possible in the end. So that's probably why I've gone down the line that I have to date. But yeah, I'm open to consider a hybrid model myself in the future. And I think it's definitely about the book and what sort of interest is out there at that time for that as well. Because some stories are hard to sell.
Oh yeah,
to a publisher. Especially to get into the big five, to get hold of the agent, which I still haven't got, but maybe you will in the future. But to get up that next tier of success, I guess you've got or to get some better remuneration for your writing. It's there are things to consider as well. Everybody would love to pull a 6-figure advance, but
oh hell yeah,
unfortunately, I think that's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which I don't think I'll find. But who knows? You can always hope.
That's it. You never know your luck in the big city, as my dad would say. So one day it could happen, and I mean, I'm the same as you. I don't have an agent. Not making enough to warrant it. But that is the dream, and also the other one is getting that message. Oh, Netflix wants to buy the rights to one of your books and make a series of it. That's the goal.
Oh, that's the dream, eh? That'd be lovely. I was lucky enough. I reckon. So, which one of your books would you love to see as a movie? But hey, any of them that anybody would like to take off me.
Yeah, that's what it is. But, although I would say Empire of Blood and Sand would be.
I don't know. You got to keep cracking along. But as you say, if I was in it just for the money or stuff like that, you wouldn't be writing because
Oh yeah, oh definitely. And I mean,
yes, we can always hope. We'll see.
Yeah, well, and I mean, like, I was talking to. I'm terrible with names today, but I was talking to another author, just having a chat, and we're talking about the writing just for the money, and if you want to write and just make money from writing, romance is the genre to do that in.
Yeah, they got really active. They read a lot.
Yep.
A lot of the romance fans. Like I've got a mate which she enjoys that genre, and many of her friends, and they might plow through a book every couple of days. So voracious readers.
Oh,
but I don't know. But then again, I think there's got to be an aspect of discipline, I guess, to writing, but I'm not. That's not the main focus to an extent. I've got another job. I'm lucky enough to have another job which pays my bills, and if I make a bit of extra cash through the writing, that's great. But it's not going to stop me from writing further books. I think as you say, you've got to enjoy what you do, and you've got to write the stories which are there in your head to tell.
Yep.
Which are probably going to be the most effective, as opposed to something which you think you're trying to hit a particular market for a particular reason. Maybe won't quite add up. But I do kind of treat my writing a little bit like a job, in terms of I work shift work. So it'll tend to be when I write, I've got a day off during the week when the house is pretty empty. So I'll go, right, I've got 8 hours to plow through. I want to get a certain word count. And some days the words come easily, some days they don't, but it's just, parking the ass in front of the screen and making sure I get through the chapter which I've got set for that day. Sometimes I love it. Sometimes it's not so much fun, but it's got to be done. But in the end, when you got the words down, you still get the satisfaction.
Oh yeah, and luckily you can go back and edit those words. That's the good thing, you know. I have that too, where, you know,
yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah, the days where it's pulling teeth as far as the writing goes, I'm like, doesn't matter, get it done. Tomorrow, that's when I can pretty everything up.
Yep. And so, when you're going through doing the self-edit, you guess when it's worked, and the days when it hasn't. Sort of, was I half pissed when I wrote this? I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, there's that old, you know, like Ernest Hemingway, he would write drunk and edit sober. When I was living in Mexico, I decided to do it the other way. I wrote sober and edited drunk. Yeah, the following day when I was completely sober and I went over what I had edited drunk. It was horrific.
Not so good.
No, oh no, because it was just all these comments, and basically it was just a string of comments on everything I read, and just saying, "Well, this is shit, change it," and not give and actually no editing, just all this random drunken blather about how terrible everything was. I'm just sitting there going, never
like
doing that again.
Being hassled by your alter ego.
Yes. Oh yeah, and it was just yeah, I'm never doing that again. So I wouldn't recommend it.
No.
So your stuff is firmly rooted in horror. You know, even Empire of Blood and Sand, you know, you got creatures, monsters. It does have that element. What do you do to make that fun for you to write? What keeps you writing in this sort of area?
I don't know, really. It's one of those things. It's sort of like, because interestingly enough, I don't watch that much horror movies, but I enjoy reading it, and writing it. And it's for whatever reason, that's kind of where my ideas kind of take me to an extent. There's always some sort of either supernatural or creature or monster kind of feature to it. I guess a lot of what I read when I was a young teenager was, you know, the same as many of us, with taking off with Stephen King type stuff. So whenever I said that I was, because I've enjoyed writing for a long time, whatever I wanted to write, it was like, I just want it to be fun.
Yep.
In terms of, I don't want to write literary fiction. I just want to write something which you can pick up and escape from the current day world. And I guess it's a proper escape from everydayism.
Oh yeah, especially nowadays with the past year and year and a half with everything that's going on. Creature features, pure escapism books. It's where it's at.
Yeah. And it's funny how much of in terms of pandemic wise, when describing how thinking how would the states work to each other and stuff like that, how much of it's gone, some of it's ended up being fairly accurate.
Oh yeah, actually no, yeah, you're right.
Closing borders and stuff like that.
Yeah. Ooh, are you a prophet? That's the question now.
Yeah, no such luck.
That makes sense.
If I was going to be a prophet, I'd be predicting the numbers in the lotto.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the old thing, if people are prophets, if they're able to foresee the future, why aren't they millionaires every week from the lotto?
Exactly.
So one of the other things, like one of our very first interactions was about the Australasian Horror Writers Association, when you used to be the man in charge.
I was just the membership coordinator, so I got I suppose it's nice to be the front where you get to chat to people as they're coming.
Yeah. So how did that come about? How did you hear about them? How did you get involved? How, who did you assassinate to get that lofty position?
Look, that was when I was first starting writing. You want to reach out and find out resources and community around you to see what was out there, when definitely learning your craft and want to know that you're going down the right line and wanting to improve. And I don't think that road or the journey of improvement ever stops, I guess. But in terms of initially searching out, I just did a Google search online and found out, oh, cool, this association exists. So I touched base with them and and joined up, and it was just kind of opening the eyes a little bit to the publishing world, and learning off the back of these other people's experiences and how they interacted, and pitfalls or faux pas to avoid and stuff like that, which might get you blacklisted in amongst I suppose editing's a fairly, and publishing is a fairly small world. So trying to get things done right. And also there were a great opportunity with, they've got a mentorship program where you can apply, submit a sample of work. Once a year they do it, and you've got a number of excellent, experienced authors which kindly offer up their time to mentor a new writer, whether it's on a short story or part of a novel in production. And I was lucky enough to get taken on by Alan Baxter, which is currently which has now become the president of the association. So he worked with me on probably about the first quarter to a third of the Cavern, which I was writing at that time. So I was gaining insights from and thoughts from him, which definitely influenced and improved that body of work.
Okay.
So that was a good opportunity and definitely worthwhile becoming part of. I know the Victorian part of the Horror Writers Association is very active, and they catch up and touch base. So it's another opportunity just to network, but also learn and improve your writing. So that's why I touch base with those guys.
Okay. And as you said, the publishing world is very small. The horror publishing world is even smaller. And, everyone, like at the moment, I don't know if, everyone talks about having, the community and having your tribe, all that sort of stuff. Is that sort of thing important for you? Or, with your day job, is it one of those things it can interfere sometimes?
I think it's definitely important to maintain relationships at minimum in a professional sense, because there's always, you never do sort of stuff alone in regard, always in terms of you meet people, you might be doing some beta reading or feedback, and that's how, you got to give to get, to an extent, and it's a bit of payback, I think, in regards to from the help that you get providing it to other writers or other people that you're meeting with in the industry, but also through that is how you meet make other contacts with publishers and potentially agents and whatnot. So I think to develop your career, if you're serious about improving your writing and getting your books out there, it's important to take part within the community to an extent. And it's probably something which I need to work on a bit more in terms of I'm a bit blank on Twitter and whatnot. I'm not very good at taking that time to get out there and take part in those many conversations. But with some of the things that go on, sometimes it's nice just to fly under the radar a little bit and not get involved with some of the more tense arguments which have developed online.
Oh yeah, I'm like, I have these periods where I'll be really interacting and talking, and then a shitstorm happens, and I'll just screw it, not going to get involved. That's all them. I got to write. I got to write.
But otherwise, yep. And I think, and part of, as I said earlier, part of it's why I go down the publisher route, where it's like, the main thing I want to do is write. I'll do the other stuff because I need to. And also, as too many of us, we've got busy daytime jobs and families and everything like that. There's only so much time you can contribute to everything, and not burn the candle completely at both ends. So, you still need to be functional every day.
Yeah, especially with your job.
Yeah.
So
you can't get the decisions wrong.
Yeah. All right. So someone contacts you, they come up to you and they say, Al, I've read your books. You've inspired me. I want to become an author too. What's the one piece of advice that you give them?
Back yourself. You've got to sit down and if it's whatever idea you want to come up with in terms of turning it into a story and then working from there. You've got to sit down and take the time to do it if you are keen. It won't write itself, but also it's a long road. And not being stressed about the journey that it takes to get there. It may not be that first story that you write which gets out. It might not be the 10th, but as long as if you're enjoying what you're doing, then continue on.
That's good advice. That's really good.
But yeah, and if you're not doing it, there's plenty of other hobbies and other jobs and other things out there. You know, it's not something to get upset about or whine about and stuff like that. So if you're finding it a trauma to do, then yeah, do something else.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That goes back to, you know, if you're not having fun and you're not loving it, why do it? Exactly.
Especially when, as we said earlier, it's often not about the money, because, you know, so therefore it's got to be for a reason.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I know I've said this in a couple of the other interviews I've done, but there's a great quote from Nicolas Cage, which I love, and it's this, and it sums up perfectly all this. He says, you know, you're not doing it for the awards, you're not doing it for the money, you're doing it for the love of the story you're telling. And I think that sums it up perfectly for me.
For sure, that's great.
Yeah, you know, and everyone's surprised that it's Nick Cage saying that.
Considering the guy is, he's prolific as anything of like that. He's a businessman as well on the other side of it, I guess. But yeah, and you're wanting to get a story worth telling, and you're wanting to share it with as many people as possible. I think that's what it comes down to. My take on it, I want people to enjoy a book, and it always makes my day when somebody touches base with you and says that they've got stuck into it and enjoyed it or whatnot. It definitely always puts a smile on your face for the rest of the day.
Oh, definitely that, and also, you know, seeing the email from, say, Severed saying, "Yep, you know, pitch my idea," and they go, "Yep, here's the contract." Getting that contract email, that's also a good one.
Oh yeah. Definitely worth a celebratory drink later that night.
Oh yeah. Although I don't know if you've had this problem. I have, which is, you know, pitch Severed the idea and they go, "Yep, here's the contract," and it's like, "Yes, I've sold a book. Oh hell, I got to write the book now."
Oh, that was only the last one, which I did with it with Severed, was the Cryptid Killers one, which is yet to come out. That's the first time I did it the right way, which is actually pitch them an idea, get it signed on the dotted line, and know that they want it. Yeah, much better than doing all the work and then going, "Oh, you know what? That's not actually what we were after."
Yeah. Oh yeah. The first two books I did was that, wrote it, sent it, and hoped to God. And then I was talking to some other authors, and they said, "Oh, you know, you can pitch ideas." I was like, you know, 25 ideas in one email. Here you go. Take your pick.
Yeah. Definitely much more straightforward.
Yeah. But then there's that case of, if they pick one, you then have to sit down and do the work. Which,
make it work. Yeah.
But that's all part of it. It's why we do it. That's, you know, to tell stories. Sure. All right. So Al, thank you so much for coming on. It was a great pleasure to have you on. Where can everyone find you when you're active on Twitter, right, and social media?
So I've got a website, which is just my name run together, alisterhodge.com, where it's got all my books and links to buy. On Facebook, it's just my name again, and on Twitter, it's alhodge79.
I'll put links to everything in the description below. Good luck with Empire of Blood and Sand. I can't wait to read it. You know, after the chat, I'm even more excited for it now.
Cool. I hope you enjoy it. And thanks very much for having me on today. It was really great fun.
No, my absolute pleasure, sir. And once again, a big thank you to Alister Hodge for coming on today. You can find links to Al's work in the description below. And if you have any author you'd like to see me interview, please feel free to put them in the comments below. Or if you are an author yourself and you'd like to come on for a chat, feel free to reach out. Until next time, balls and ghouls, stay spooky.